Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of the LSO biannual new member marathon for 2023. Thank you. This is, as you may know, part of the LSO's monthly breakfast forum. Now, before we introduce you to our sponsor, 10,000 Coffees, and Nitai is here from 10,000 Coffees, I'd like to begin with our land acknowledgement. And today we recognize the land we are standing on as the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Ontario is covered by Treaty 13 signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. This morning's event is the first of two we host during the year, which provides us with an opportunity to introduce the LSO and life sciences communities to our newest members. Today, we introduce you to Envirotainer, Incyte Biosciences, Livestock Research Innovation Corporation, and Rhythm Pharmaceuticals, which will share who they are, what they do, and how they interact with Canada's life sciences ecosystem. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome today's event sponsor, 10,000 Coffees, to provide a welcome to today's guests, both in person and online, and to share a few details about the company. With that, I invite Nitai Ben-Shak, and Nitai, please correct me if I didn't do that right, Senior Account Executive, to share a few words.
Thank you. Let's just make sure, oh, here we are. It's already loaded. This is perfect. Good morning, everyone. Just like quick show of hands, who here has heard of 10,000 Coffees before? It might just be because we started talking this morning. If not, great to hear. Who here has actually worked with 10,000 Coffees before or participated in any of our programs? Amazing. So at a very high level, I just want to introduce you to what it is that we do and how we do it. And fundamentally, we built 10,000 Coffees to be the all-in-one solution for inclusive connectivity, mentoring, and skill development. And when we say inclusive, we mean inclusive across the board. DEI is built into our DNA. We are ourselves a diversity-founded company. We work with some of the most forward-thinking and progressive organizations in the world, and are absolutely thrilled to partner with some pretty amazing partners, some of whom are in the room today as well. When thinking about the connectivity landscape, there's a lot of places that do mentoring or maybe do connectivity or sponsorship. And our goal is that we do all of that under one solution. So we help our partners build, manage, and scale the programs that help their employees grow and fundamentally drive the key ROIs of performance, retention, and overall engagement. So the data within the industry, the experiences that our partners and our users have, and the research that we ourselves are doing continue to point to the direction that human-to-human connections, feeling connected, having that support network within your organization, and understanding what it takes to develop both individually, within the team, prepare for the future of work, are what keep people happy, keep them within their organization, and allow them to grow and develop along a designated path. As I mentioned, our research with some of our largest global partners over the past few months is continuing to show that participation in 10,000 Coffees can contribute to reducing churn by up to 30%. So we're pretty excited to have those results come out in the next few months, and please stay tuned as we release them. When we talk about connectivity or human-to-human connection, kind of the overall talent experience, and really what I mean by an all-in-one solution is connectivity is going to mean very different things to very different people. It's also going to mean very different things to different organizations. So as you think about the entire employee experience, that full spectrum of the employee life cycle, from hire to retire, what does connection mean? What does the right connection for you mean? And what does success from that connection mean? And as we look at the pinwheel here of the various different use cases that we support, it could be a number of different overlapping use cases, whether that be connectivity, leadership development, bringing on new talent, and of course, as I mentioned, diversity and inclusion layered throughout. So what we aim to do is fit in the right parts of the organization, integrate it into your existing tech stack, making sure that we are meeting people where they work, whether it be through email, through Slack, through MS Teams, and ensuring that we're able to deliver what matters most to the individual based on their own specific interests and goals. How does all of this magic actually work? So our platform is really broken out into three very simple pillars of programming. When you join 10,000 Coffees, we're able to automatically pull some of your high-level business card data, things like your role, your team, your location, and then you're able to self-select from a list that we build out with our partners, your personal interests and goals. And then our industry-leading algorithm, that's a tough one, will pair you with the right connections based on the criteria we set out. Maybe it's cross-functional, maybe it's across different roles, maybe it's within your team, but a different function. And then based on your interests and goals. So it is your selections that drive who you're paired with, and it's delivered, the experience is delivered directly to you in the way that makes the most sense for you. The three core pillars really quickly. The first on the left is introductions. Kind of think about that as speed dating for culture building. So based on, again, your interests and goals, how can we introduce you to somebody new, maybe every 3, 4, 6 weeks, and say, Nitai, match with Andy. You've been paired because Andy is offering skills A, B, and C. Nitai is looking for skills B, C, and D. So we see a little bit of an overlap. Here are some helpful conversation starters, things to get you going. But regardless of how experienced I am or how comfortable I am networking, I have that equitable experience where I have the introduction delivered to me. I understand why I've been paired with them, and I'm given the resources to prepare and have a really valuable conversation. The next, office hours, is how we're able to scale up that magic and make sure that leaders, executives, subject matter experts, people who would really benefit from either speaking at scale or that the audience would benefit from having democratized access to, are able to engage in a way that makes the most sense for their calendars. So asking a leader or an executive to add another one-on-one into their calendar is not what we're looking to do. So how can we smart match a leader to a group of maybe 15 or 20 or 25 interested people on a designated topic and have them impact maybe 100 people by meeting once per quarter with that designated group? The third is where we take all of the magic of the matching algorithm and apply it to more formalized or structured programs. So how can we pair you with a mentor or an onboarding buddy or a sponsor or a coach and have you go through a structured curriculum? So maybe over 6 months, you'll go through 1 session per month. Again, everything delivered directly to your inbox or through your MS Teams or through your Slack, where we are saying it is now time for session 1. Here is an overview of the conversation. Here are helpful resources to prepare. Here are conversation starters. And again, everything is automated and measured directly through the platform. So high-level crash course, kind of on the 30,000-foot view of what it is that we do. And all of our programs, all of our use cases involve some overlap of these 3 core pillars, and you're able to participate in the way that makes the most sense for you. So as an employee with your designated goals, do you want a mentor? Do you want to be engaging in that ongoing connectivity? Do you want to attend office hours hosted by leaders or in areas or topics that you're interested in? And you're able to really chart your own path within the designated program. So wrapping up, if you're going to take away kind of 3 key things from this, we are an all-in-one talent experience that can be scaled, fully automated, and run through the platform. To as many employees as you'd like. We run programs for as few as 100 employees. We are enterprise-wide at some of the largest organizations, 45, 50,000 plus, and impacting across the board. And it's managed all in one place. So often we hear that people are running multiple disparate mentorship programs, multiple disparate sponsorship programs. There's no way for them to communicate. There's no way to see program by program or aggregate data. So when you're able to measure it all in a standardized format through one data dashboard, giving permissions to the right people, we're able to support, oh, this disappeared, but hopefully you see the global nature of what we can provide. And that brings me to the last point, which is that just like any good tech company, data is our bread and butter. Everything that we do is measured. Everything that we do is reported back to our clients. So we can not only report on the leading indicators of the success of the program, the individual experience, but also those lagging indicators around performance, engagement, retention, and making sure that on a customer by customer, on a program by program, and even on an individual by individual basis, we're able to report back on the ROIs that matter most to them. And that's 10,000 Coffees. Thank you very much. Thank you. Not bad for my first time talking about us. But for anyone who has absolutely any questions, if anything that I said was of interest to you, if you're working with a 10,000 copies program and you either want to say something really nice or pull me aside and very quietly without anyone hearing say something a bit more constructive, would love to meet with you, would love to chat, and please come say hi.
Thanks, Incyte. I'll say something nice. As many of you know, LSO's mentorship platform is the 10,000 Copies Hub. So I invite you to visit, sign up if you haven't done so already, and start taking advantage of that. Once again, thanks, Incyte, for that overview. Now, meet our members. First up is Carolyn Van Vliet, Strategic Account Manager, Canada for Envirotainer. Envirotainer is a global market expert in secure cold chain solutions for air transport of biopharmaceuticals. They provide the largest and most advanced fleet of temperature-controlled air cargo containers. And Carolyn, the mic is now yours.
Thank you, Andy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking some time to learn a little more about Envirotainer. As Andy mentioned, my name is Carolyn Van Vliet. I am Strategic Account Manager for Envirotainer in Canada. I'm excited and humbled to be here today in the company of some incredible organizations and very educated and qualified individuals. So I'm humbled here to be able to talk about our world, and that is the world of temperature-controlled packaging and air transportation. So who is Envirotainer? Envirotainer is a Swedish-based organization. We have more than 35 years in the industry, and we provide temperature-controlled solutions for air transportation. We have a clearly defined purpose, which is to enable global access to biopharmaceuticals, simply put, because lives depend on it. And we do this by living every day with our core values. We are passionate about what we do. We're committed to our customers, and we're proud of the contributions that we make to ensuring that life-saving medicines can reach the market and patients. Trustworthiness. We work with integrity. We are accountable with our actions, and we are honest and transparent in our communications. Team spirit. We're a small team. We're a strong and we're an engaged team. We collaborate with our colleagues internally, as well as our partners and our customers. And we do so with respect to reach a common goal. Agility. The last couple of years, clearly, a lot of organizations have recognized the importance of being agile. And our ability to respond quickly and pragmatically has enabled us to find creative solutions for our customers and the way we do our business. So what is it that we do? Envirotainer, we manufacture and lease temperature-controlled containers to transport pharmaceuticals used during air transportation. Our key products are our active temperature-controlled containers. They are FAA and EASA-approved aircraft containers that provide temperature handling in the temperature ranges of -20 to +25 degrees. We also launched last year our CryoSure dry ice doer, and this provides temperature control in -70 temperatures. In fact, more than 2 million doses of medicines are transported in our containers each and every day globally. So how do we do this? Well, as Andy mentioned, we have the largest and most state-of-the-art fleet of active temperature-controlled containers. Our assets consist of more than 7,500 globally. This enables us to provide access to capacity for 140 pallets of product into the market. Our active temperature-controlled containers are also complemented with our digital solutions and support services. We have a customer portal, an online customer portal that provides real-time access and live monitoring. So customers can see how their shipments are performing and with the safe knowledge that and the knowledge their product is safe. We have strong organizational capabilities and strict KPIs. Again, we have 35 years experience in the industry. We actually are the only container manufacturer that has in-house production and R&D in-house in our own facilities, which are located in Stockholm. We're proud to advise that we have 100% neutral operations in 2020. And we have a global market presence worldwide, with representation in 20 countries and more than 60 commercial staff. We have a reaching network of 60 stations globally, allowing us to reach 300 airports and 3,300 trade lanes. So who do we actually engage with? What is our ecosystem? We collaborate with all major pharmaceutical manufacturers, freight forwarders, and airlines. Those are the three key stakeholders in our ecosystem. When we engage with the pharmaceutical manufacturers, of which we've built strong, long-standing relationships with over 650 of them, our focus is to reduce risk to their product. We want to make sure that the product can get into the market safely. As far as our other partners and stakeholders, our forwarders, we are engaged with 450, and we are partnering with over 100 airlines globally. When we engage with those partners, our focus is to ensure availability of our equipment to ensure a successful shipment. Again, making sure that the product can travel and arrive to its destination. For global coverage via owned, third-party, and partner stations. As mentioned, we have over 65 stations globally, 5 of which are owned by Envirotainer. We refer to those as our center of excellence, and they are located in Stockholm, Amsterdam within Europe, Atlanta within the Americas region, and South Korea and Singapore in the APAC regions. Now let's talk about our containers. So the technologies that we offer. We launched and entered the market in the year 2000 with our T technology. And our T containers provide cooling and deep frozen capabilities, utilizing dry ice and 16 D-cell batteries. The temperatures that we can provide with these containers vary from -20 to +20 degrees. In 2005, we launched our E technology. This offers compressor cooling and electric heating. And this is powered through rechargeable nickel metal hydrate batteries. E containers can provide temperature handling in +0, +2 to +25 degrees Celsius. Both the T-Tech and the E-Technology is available in 2 different size configurations. We refer to as the RKN, which provides capacity for 1 single shipper pallet, and the RAP, which provides capacity for up to 4 shipper pallets. Jumping forward to 2021, we launched our Rely service. And the Rely service is, the Rely service is an extension of our E-service. It does provide electric heating and compressor cooling. It also is operated on nickel metal hydrate batteries. However, with the advancements in the design, utilizing vacuum insulated panels and improved components, we are able to offer a duration, validation and stability for up to 170 hours without the containers being recharged. The Rely containers can also provide temperature handling in the +4 to +30 temperature range. And of course, the best feature that we are able to offer with this container is it's fully integrated with 18 sensors, which provides real-time visibility and live monitoring. Envirotainer's leasing services are quite simple with a simple business model. The order is placed through our online portal. Container is then delivered or picked up from our depot, brought to the pharmaceutical facility where it is loaded under strict conditions. Once it's loaded, it's then brought to the airport through your logistics service provider and flown on its scheduled transportation. At arrival at destination, the container is brought to the central distribution facility or consignee. Container is destuffed, and then the empty container is returned back to Envirotainer's depot. This process is available for both our containers as well as our recently launched CryoSure product, which is the next thing on my list. So in 2001, we also launched, in 2021, we also launched our new CryoSure product. CryoSure is an innovative technology that provides superior protection for high-value products requiring minus 70 degrees Celsius. We're talking about cell and gene therapies, biologics, vaccines, clinical and diagnostic specimens. This revolutionary performance is also available in 4 sizes, ranging from 1 liter to 11 liters. It's easy to handle with a simplified leasing model. Real-time visibility and live monitoring is also available. And of course, because of the advancements in its design and the little amount of dry ice that is required, it is certainly offering a lower CO2 emissions. So the key benefits of our CryoSure solution: ISTA 7D validated, again, for minus 70 Celsius, offering stability for anywhere from 8 and up to 21 days. It's easy to handle. It arrives pre-charged with the dry ice, ready for you to load and ship onto its journey. We offer a lighter carbon footprint, and the performance is not affected by the orientation, again, because of its design. It's heat resistant and can tolerate temperatures up to plus 60 degrees. And of course, it also can maintain the temperature inside the product area at minus 70 stable, even when it's open multiple times. As mentioned, it's also available with real-time visibility functionality. So how does it actually work? Well, the CryoSure is a vacuum insulated flask, a dewar, made from high-grade durable aluminum. It's housed in a cardboard outer package that's lined with foam, provide additional protection during handling and transportation. Inside the dewar, there is a compartment for the dry ice, and there's also the product space. These 2 areas are separated with a metallic barrier, so the product space is never in contact with the dry ice. Once the product is loaded, the insulated lid is attached on the top, and the cap provides a tight, unsealed fit to allow for the CO2 gases to escape and to vent. So there's a substantial difference when you compare our CryoSure unit with traditional dry ice boxes, conventional dry ice boxes. The sublimation rate of our units works out to an average of 100 grams a day. Compare that with the sublimation rate of a conventional dry ice box, you're looking at approximately 3,000 grams a day. This chart here demonstrates every 72 hours on the lower image, every 72 hours, a conventional dry ice box will need to be re-iced. And of course, you can see the temperature curve each time that box is open in order to add the dry ice. Whereas on the CryoSure solution, we are looking at no temperature curves. It's a solid line, and the product temperature, the temperature inside the dewar remains stable at minus 70 for the duration of the shipment. I won't get into the details of the product specifications, but this slide here is really just to demonstrate the 4 different sizes. And as you can see, our X1 provides temperature handling for up to 8 days. And the X11 on the far right to 15 days. I would like to point out, however, our X2 provides temperature handling stable up to 21 days. Highlighted along the bottom is the amount of dry ice, or I should say the less amount of dry ice that is required. Our X2 requires only 3.5 kilos dry ice and will maintain that temperature for up to 21 days. To facilitate loading and unloading the material inside the CryoSure units, they can all be ordered with various product holders, and they vary from stainless steel cylindrical or rectangular with a racking system that can accommodate cryo boxes. And of course, we can handle cleans, sleeves, vials, etc. So in addition to our products, our actual temperature controlled solutions, we support those with a variety of digital solutions and support services. I mentioned our online customer portal. It's available 24/7 provides order management, shipment reports, and shipment analytics. Obviously, our Rely and CryoSure containers that are equipped with the tracking devices are able to be integrated with our live monitoring and control tower services. We also offer qualification services using our technology transfer packages. And of course, we have our Learning Academy, which is the Envirotainer Academy. This is another example of our Envirotainer portal, live monitoring and control tower. And you can see some of the images there when a shipment is being tracked online. You can actually see how where the shipment is, where the container is, how it's performing in real time. Our academy is launched because Envirotainer is a strong advocate of knowledge and learnings within all stakeholders in the supply chain. It is your one-stop shop for teachings about our containers as well as industry-related topics. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year, and it can be customized to your role, your function, and your quest for knowledge. Last but not least, I'd like to share Envirotainer's strategy for sustainability. We will continue to develop industry-leading solutions designed with the goal to lower the CO2 footprint in the pharmaceutical cold chain, be this in the design, construction, volume efficiency, or digital services. When it comes to production and operations, our foundation is to operate on a circular business model. We are proud to have reached CO2 neutrality in 2020, and our goal for 2030 is to run on 100% renewable energy. Envirotainer is committed to being a world-class organization, one that values inclusivity and diversity, resulting in value-driven and high-performing culture. Of course, we will continue to collaborate, which is exactly why we're involved here with the LSO group, collaborate with industry partners within the ecosystem with the goal to transform the industry and promoting only the use of low emission offerings for a sustainable future. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to take questions later in the morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. You know what, I was remiss at the very beginning to not point out the fact that this is the first in-person member marathon we've had since the pandemic. And what a way to kick it off. Next up, we have Incyte Biosciences, Christine Lennon, General Manager, Incyte Biosciences Canada. Incyte is the Canadian affiliate of Incyte Corp, a global biopharmaceutical company focused on finding solutions for serious unmet medical needs through the discovery, development, and commercialization of proprietary therapeutics. Christine, I pass the mic to you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to Biosciences Ontario. We're happy to be a member, I want to say for the last year. So good morning, everybody. Lovely to be in Toronto, although I'm looking at those looming skies. Even there, I might be staying one more day. So my name is Christine Lennon, as Andy said. I'm General Manager of Incyte Biosciences Canada. We're a company that has existed for 20 years out of Wilmington, Delaware, as you'll see. But in Canada, we started operations, and you'll recall this time of life in April of 2020, right? So that's when we kicked off operations in Canada from my kitchen table during a lockdown. And I'm happy to be accompanied today by Ruth Pritchard, one of our colleagues here in Toronto, head of stakeholder relations and peer relations, and our head of medical affairs, Jose Brisebois, as well from Incyte. So the Incyte story, as I mentioned, we're a 20-year-old company worldwide. In Canada, we're a 3-year-old company. So it's kind of like a startup within an existing company. We're about 2,300 people worldwide. The headquarters are in Wilmington, Delaware. Nobody knew where that was until, the current president was elected in the US, but now everybody knows where Wilmington, Delaware is, not far from here, an hour away, hour by plane, of course. And this was originally a West Coast genomics company 20 years ago. And when DuPont Pharmaceuticals was sold to Merck, many of the initial scientists in Wilmington, Delaware, biologists, chemists, wanted to stay on. And so there was a kind of a peanut butter chocolate, they came together. And of the 2,300 employees that we have worldwide, there's probably about 500 or 600 biologists, chemists, translational scientists, etc., in this location and elsewhere. So it's very heavy percentage-wise in terms of the actual basic research we do, and you'll see that from the patents and innovations and inventions that we create. We're really focused on, as much as possible, first in class, first to market, best in class therapies, small molecule, as well as antibodies, etc. And our locations, as you'll see in a few minutes, we're really around the world right now, largely G20. Our mission is to solve on, which you'll see that in many of our taglines. We're all faced a very regulated market. We're all faced with challenges along the way, not just in scientific discovery, our translational science, clinical development, but increasingly also in gaining approvals and importantly reimbursement, making sure our medicines are made available to patients worldwide. And so really our mantra is about solving on. So here's our footprint. You'll see that Wilmington is the headquarters in the US. Our US operations are based out of actually a suburb of Philadelphia, Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. In I want to say about 5-6 years ago, maybe 7 even, the Incyte bought Ariad Pharmaceuticals operations in the EU to get bespoke operations in a number of EU countries. And also this provided us manufacturing capabilities as well. So the Swiss headquarters are in Morges. The manufacturing is in Yverdon, also in Switzerland, and we have operations around the world. We also have quite a large unit in Tokyo, which is also working with our colleagues in China, as well as not on this map, South Korea. And we have a group which does handles distributorships, licensing for markets outside of where we actually have a footprint. And interestingly, some of our drugs have been we've done license agreements with Knight Therapeutics, which is another Canadian company for many of the Latin American markets. So the next 2 slides will show you our pipeline. We have a very robust pipeline, which is largely targeted in oncology and in inflammation and autoimmunity. We're really about the target. What's interesting is that Incyte drugs have actually been in Canada, not under the Incyte banner, but they've been approved and been available to Canadians before we actually started our footprint. And some of us worked at companies like Novartis, where some of the Incyte discoveries have been licensed worldwide. Another Incyte discovery in rheumatoid arthritis had been licensed to Eli Lilly worldwide. So this was really about, not just in the US, they had kept the operations for themselves. And when the now CEO came on board in 2014, he said, that's great that we keep licensing to the rest of the world, but we really want to expand our footprint, our clinical trial footprint, et cetera. And so this is part of the expansion, at least into the G20 markets. So we are bringing our innovations now to Canada ourselves, and not under, the banner of Novartis or Lilly, et cetera. They continue to market the products that we license to them, of course. But what's really in our pipeline today and upstream is are the discoveries that we're bringing in. And now we're large enough that we can actually license in as well. So we're doing our own collaborations. So, walk before you run, and sort of a growing up company, if you will. So this will just show you the number of products we have: hematology, oncology, solid tumors, dermatology, et cetera. And I will say that we started off, as you'll see in a few minutes, with 2 oncology drugs here in Canada. Right now, as we speak, the Canadian Dermatology Association meeting is going on, just I guess a few blocks away in the convention center. And we have, for the first time, a very large presence at that meeting. So I wanted to show this slide. It's a few years old, I guess. But just to show that, many of you perhaps never heard of Incyte before. We started operations in Canada, perhaps you did. But on an innovation and invention ranking, not done by us, but done publicly, we're actually very high in terms of, if you're looking right most in the upper corner. So invention ranking would be a number of points. And innovation is how quickly do we translate those patents into the translational ability of being able to translate such patents and discoveries into innovation. So you'll see that we're quite prolific when it comes to the discoveries, the inventions, and the translational science, right up there with Pfizer, Eli Lilly. Of course, we don't have, and Regeneron, AstraZeneca, we don't have the number of people that they do necessarily, or the resources, but certainly we have the will and the desire. And a number of the folks in the company have all been at large pharma previously, as I'm sure you can imagine. So the company is intentionally kept flat, so that if I want to call the head of, chemistry, biology, if Jose wants to, we want to call the head of value pricing, it's just like a phone call away. We don't have to go through a labyrinth of, trying to find the individuals. And so that helps us solve on faster, as you can imagine. So the other thing about Incyte, which is lovely, is that we're one of the top employers as ranked by employees. So this is a US ranking. This is across the various pharma companies. But even this year, most recently, and this is across all industries, Incyte ranked 21 out of the top 100 companies globally by Newsweek as a most loved workplace. So we definitely, we're very selective in who we bring on board. We try to nurture their talent, their interests, their ability to innovate, solve on, etc. And so this has been the first time, I think it's the first time that this ranking, we have this ranking, but it's the first time they've ever done this globally as well, Newsweek. So we're quite proud of that. And I will say we're continuing to grow. So as we try to attract talent, as we try to retain and nurture talent, we want to make sure that we maintain this ranking, if not improve it. Again, this is across all industries. And we're hiring right now. So I was just doing a quick count. We actually are headquartered in the Montreal area. We're about 33 employees today. And some of our employees are actually in Ontario, in Toronto, Windsor, Hamilton area, Kitchener. So, we started during COVID, and it was really about attracting best talent wherever best talent was. It was all about, Jose knows this because she started, we didn't meet for a year maybe. And so it was all about Zoom calls and figuring things out. And as I'm sure everyone knows and appreciates, cancer didn't wait. It didn't stop during the pandemic, and neither did any other disease. So people still, patients needed, they needed our drugs. We needed to get them to Health Canada. Sure, we were going through a pandemic, but as many of you know, folks unfortunately are walking into get their diagnosis now of stage 3 and stage 4 cancer. And so, hopefully we can take all the learnings that we had in COVID in terms of compressing and call to action and start the next war on cancer, on diabetes, on obesity, etc. I would also say that we have been investing in biomanufacturing here in Ontario as well, not bricks and mortar ourselves, but in local manufacturing here for some worldwide capacity of some of our drugs. So the two drugs we have currently approved in Canada were both approved by Health Canada in 2021. So within 1 year of starting operations in Canada, we were successful in gaining approval for 2 of our innovations. One is a monoclonal antibody for relapsed refractory diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. If any of you have heard of CAR T, the CAR T therapies, etc., this is the same target, but it's a CAR T off the shelf in the sense that it's an antibody. Also, we gained approval for a once-a-day oral, very targeted drug called pemigatinib, which is for fusion growth receptor factor 2. So it's a molecular target for people that have that fusion, FGFR2 fusion, that have cholangiocarcinoma, a type of bile duct cancer. So this is a once-a-day oral therapy, very targeted, first in class. They're both first in class therapies. They went through accelerated approval at Health Canada. Some of you in the room, I know, have experienced cholangiocarcinoma in their families as well. It's a very rare type of cancer. And we're very pleased that we were able to gain approvals very quickly for both of these innovations. Where we've had challenges in Canada particularly is gaining reimbursement. So we are trying to solve on, we're working very diligently. This is where we, would appreciate the ecosystem's help, and obviously the voice of the patients, the prescribers in gaining reimbursement. We did get a positive recommendation for Minjuvi from INES in Quebec, and we are looking to try to advance on both of these compounds here in Canada. So as obviously we're a member of Life Sciences Ontario, we're also a member of Innovative Medicines Canada. I'm actually on the board, as is Carol Stiff, who will be presenting shortly from Rhythm. We're also members of Biotech Canada and a number of the Life Sciences group in Canada, BC, Alberta, Montreal, etc. Yes, the majority of our investments people investments, I should say, and to some extent dollar investments are in Quebec and Ontario. We do have employees. We have about 33 employees right now. We have 10 jobs posted as I speak. So by the end of the year, we'll be closer to 45, which is quite a growth rate in the last few years. Importantly, we've been investing in clinical trials. We have over 35 clinical trials right now ongoing in Canada at various stages. In 2022 alone, we invested close to $30 million of R&D alone. That was on a very minimal base of revenue. So, it's a great investment. We're ticking far above the 10% of WINC. And interestingly, a fun fact, kind of weird fact, but the year before we invested close to 20 million in R&D, but because we had 0 sales, the reporting in PMPRB is as a percentage of sales, as you know. So it was reported as 0. Of course, the math I took says it's infinity, but it is dated, my math courses, that's true. But they're like, no, it has to be a percentage of sales. So I would just say to LSO, and I've mentioned to IMC as well, is numbers that get reported out of certain places in terms of the percentage of R&D investments made, it's a percentage of sales. So it's not an accurate representation of really the level of investment. And, you know, we spread the love. We have partnerships in Atlantic Canada, in Quebec, in Ontario, including manufacturing, as I said, in Ontario. We do API development in Western Canada. We have employees, Vancouver, Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary in Alberta, Windsor, all throughout Ontario, Quebec, Montreal. And as Ruth mentioned, we have 10 jobs right now online. You can go on LinkedIn, and therefore positions, first enroll positions across Canada as we're building our dermatology group. And that's who we are. So we are very, very happy to be here, very happy to be a member of LSO. And I want to thank you. Merci. Thank you for the opportunity.
I think everybody can agree in the room that that was a very insightful overview. Christine, Ruth, thanks so much for your support. And remember, there is another benefit there that you get 5 free postings on the Biotalent Canada job board, known as Petri Dish, as a member of LSO. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to move to our third presenter, who is Mike McMorris, and he is the CEO of Livestock Research Innovation Corporation, and he'll share details on LRIC, which from their website, as you'll see, believes in creating a robust future for the livestock value chain. And since nobody tells their story better than Mike, I'm going to leave it to him.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity. I really wish I could be there today, but things turned out that I have to do this remotely. So we'll connect later. And certainly, if you have any interest in LRIC when I'm done, feel free to reach out to me. So as said, our organization is about creating a robust future for the livestock sector. So I'm going to be asking Brian to advance the slides for me. So Brian, if you could advance it. You might be wondering why I've got Spock there. I grew up on a farm near Guelph. And in 1969, as a farm boy, I heard on one of the episodes Spock say, "I'm behaving disgracefully. I've eaten animal flesh and I've enjoyed it. What is wrong with me?" And I remember looking at the TV thinking, what on earth is he talking about? I don't understand this context. And more, not more and more, but certainly in today's context, that's not as, not outlandish, but out of context as it seemed in 1969. But that's always stuck with me about, well, what does the future look like? And how can we help to create a robust future? And now I'm at an organization that actually has as a mandate creating a robust future for the livestock sector. Go ahead, please, Brian. About LRIC, we were created 10 years ago. We have all of the livestock sectors as members. And to be clear, there are various definitions of livestock out there. To us, livestock includes poultry, it includes aquaculture, and it includes horses. And in fact, we have all of those as members, along with beef, dairy, swine, sheep, etc. We also have additional value chain members. Oh, if you could back up one, Brian. Alltech, large international company, Meat and Poultry Ontario, that represents all the small to medium-sized processors in Ontario. We have strong support from OMAFRA, which is the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. We're very small and nimble by design. One thing in life I despise is bureaucracy. We have none of that at LRIC. The downside of not having bureaucracy is if you have a good idea, you look around at the other person that you work with. Okay, do we have time to do that? Can we take that on? Is that a priority? We do bring in external expertise. We have an emerging issues committee that is charged with looking ahead at what's coming at the livestock sector in Ontario. And we have an international research advisory committee to try and bring advice, perspective, and good ideas from around the world. Okay, Brian? This is my grandfather's farm in Louvain, Saskatchewan in about 1924. For those who don't know agriculture, that is a steam engine with the smoke flying out of it. You can see a long belt running to a machine that's harder to see. That's a thrashing machine. So in the old days, you would have a crew come in and you would participate and just look at the horses. There are around 20 horses there. There are around 20 men who would be cutting the grain, putting on wagons, bringing it to this thrashing machine, forking it in, and then it would thrash the grain from the straw. You can see what I assume are cook wagons and an old car. That's quite an operation. You'll see throughout this that I like sayings. One that I heard a long time ago is different isn't always better, but better is always different. So when we hear people say, I don't like change, well, yes, you do. You just want to be involved in that change. The other one I like, which ties again nicely into the job I have, is the best way to know the future is to create it. So there's been a lot of change. And keep in mind, as you get older, 100 years seems a lot less in time than when you're younger. This is less than 100 years ago. And so, Brian, if you could advance to the next slide. Again, for those who may not be as familiar with farming, that does everything the previous picture did. It's one person, one machine. So that's how far agriculture is moving. It's moving fast, and like everything, it's going to speed up. Okay, Brian. Just a couple of things, because I find in our world, people kind of confuse definitions. So to me, and LREC research is discovery or establishing facts. Innovation is broader. It's a new idea or method. So that's more creative. And then A to B is how we like to keep it simple. A is where are you today? B is where do you need to go? So the future. And then if you can define those two, then you can start to get a roadmap of how to get there. And I find certainly in the world I work in, we talk a lot and we focus so much on how are we going to get there, but we haven't come to agreement on where are we going, let alone even where are we today. So I think sometimes we need to simplify things and have lots of discussion to clarify A and B before we start the car and start the trip, so to speak. Okay, Brian. So the livestock sector today, it's a key pillar of Ontario's economy, environment, and food security. I won't read through all the things there, but it's big business. It's important business. It has overall a positive effect on the environment. Yes, it does have some negative side effects, as does everything that humans do. It's very important to our food security, but also our role in feeding the world and a growing population within the world. So I believe we have a good story, and I believe it's one that is being told for us by a lot of other people who don't actually know the livestock sector. And I'm encouraging members to be better at telling their story and how they're improving day to day. Okay, Brian. This is one of the best books I've read. If you like reading books, I highly recommend it. The premise of the book, so for those who may know, Thomas Friedman writes for the New York Times, excellent writer, excellent perspective. The premise of his book is that we are surrounded by exponential change. We all think of Moore's law, but add in genomics, add in technologies, add in artificial insemination, that's the other AI, artificial intelligence. We're surrounded by this change. Next slide, please. And his point is that we can adapt to change. That's the green line, but we don't adapt as individuals or society in an exponential factor. So his point was we're where the circle is. And that has lots of implications on how we individually and as society are dealing with change. You might wonder why I'm talking about this book and this model or thoughts on where we are as change. I think it's really important because as we try to deal in livestock and as LRIC with our mandate of creating the future, it's within this context that we're trying to work with people because change is all about people. But I think it goes much more broadly to society. And I suspect if you get a chance to read the book, it will resonate with you in whatever field you're in. Okay. So there's some big issues facing livestock, certainly perception versus reality. People think of farming, they think of a little red barn and a man with a pitchfork. Well, there aren't many little red barns, and it's not just men, and there are very few pitchforks left. Climate change has two implications here. For sure, agriculture, including livestock, needs to reduce its impact, and they're facing adaptation to change, whether that's increased snow load, more flash flooding, et cetera. It has huge implications on the business that they're in. Certainly antimicrobial use, whether that's in humans or livestock, is a big issue. Consumers repeatedly say that they make, what they think about is their health, planet health, and in the case of livestock, animal welfare. So those are the chapters that we need to tell our story within. Genomics. I think genomics today is where nuclear energy was in the 50s. It has incredible power, but we need people to be a little more educated because we tend to jump to having strong opinions without actually knowing much about what we're thinking about. Policy and regulations, absolutely huge. That cuts across all businesses. Alternate proteins, so we'll call it lab meat, call it fermentation, call it cellular production, plant-based alternatives, which can be ultra highly processed foods. I encourage you to check our website. Dr. Rogers with the food science department at the University of Guelph has done some really, really interesting work looking at is that food the same once it enters your digestive system. Dr. Von Holder, who's with Alltech, has a great talk that we've had him give a number of times on metrics matter, and I'll come back to that one. If you're not familiar with livestock or agriculture, you might be interested in the Dublin Declaration that was started obviously in Ireland, and it's all about scientists signing on to a declaration that says livestock is important. Yes, it has implications on the environment. We have a story to tell where we are today, where we're going, and how we're improving. And to date, there are over 1,000 scientists around the world that have signed on to that declaration. Okay, next. So this is just one example of metrics matter. If I said to you, so if you've read press, what percentage of global greenhouse gas emissions come from livestock? You would probably say 14.5%. In fact, in Ontario, and this is data put out in 2018 by the University of Guelph, agriculture in Ontario is 8%, and livestock's about 50% of that. So that's 4%. That's a big difference. So how do you explain that? The difference is in Canada and North America, we have very efficient livestock production. And if you look at the map on the bottom right, purple is bad and light green is good. You will see a 30-fold difference in the greenhouse gas emissions from beef production expressed as CO2 equivalents per kilogram of protein. That's huge. So metrics really, really matter, and livestock has a challenge to help define what the best metrics are and then report using those metrics. Okay, next slide. Our International Research Advisory Committee did some work in the last year looking at the livestock innovation system. And they said here are the 5 key components. You need to know what you're focused on, so priorities. You have to have resources to do the work. You have to manage things efficiently as you do that work. GRIP is getting research into practice. So that's if there's an idea or a management change that farmers should be considering. That's how do you get that information to them, basically sell them that this is a good idea and get them to do it. And then when there's IP involved, you are looking at commercialization. It doesn't stop. Its cycles goes around and around in a system. Next slide, please. So where do we work? We work basically at the intersection of industry, government, in our case, Ministry of Ag and Food, and University of Guelph. Largely University of Guelph. You could put academia there, but University of Guelph is by far the largest in the space we work in. One of the people, actually was the Dean of Ontario Veterinary College, said Elric is the trusted intermediary between industry, academia, and government. And that really sums it up well, because those 3 circles have evolved into very, very different worlds, different cultures, different languages. And we play a bit of a bridging and a translating role between them. We try to act as a central hub for livestock research and innovation. And I've made the point, but any innovation, any change is about people. So a lot of what we do is working with people. Next slide, please. So what exactly do? We facilitate research priority setting with our members, so say Ontario beef farmers, and then we do that across sector for the livestock sector itself. And then we work with the Ministry of Ag and Food because they put out calls for research proposals. We need to do a much, much better job on clarity of challenges and opportunities in the sector, because that will then drive clearer and better research priorities. We review about 50 research proposals per year that go through the Ministry of Ag and Food. One of the things we found is that everyone is hiring from a pool of people, of which about 1.5% grew up on a farm. So that means that new faculty and others are largely coming from non-farm backgrounds. That's not the end of the story. They can certainly get that, but universities don't really focus on getting them the catching them up on that. So we started a mentorship program for early career faculty, and we had phenomenal uptake, far more than I expected. I think we're up to 22 faculty now in 3 years. And it was neat. We focus on cross-sector research. So we introduced an early career research award. If you were in our mentorship program, you could apply to it. So just 2 weeks ago, we awarded that to a young researcher who's looking at small ruminants and some of the production practices that could be improved. The bridge program is moving the sync of those 3 circles. If you're in one of those 3 circles, we'll work with you to connect you across those circles and answer any questions you have on livestock production. We had a Horizon series of webinars over the last 2 years, and I'll come back to that in a moment. We produced probably 20 to 30 articles for producer magazines, beef, dairy, you name it. Every year we have a monthly newsletter that if you're interested, follow up with me, and you can certainly sign up for that. We look at cross-sector issues, and we do make connections nationally, so we're not focusing just on Ontario. Okay, next slide, please. So these are some of the topics that we've covered in our Horizon series. Remember I said, what are the big things facing livestock? That was the impetus for these webinars. Each of these webinars is 20 minutes with 20 minutes for questions. We also then provide a white paper. So we do a lot of the work, make it easier for someone who's an expert in the field to join, give a presentation, and review the white paper. So regenerative agriculture was the dean of the Ontario Agricultural College. Future of livestock vaccines was the associate dean of Ontario Veterinary College. Livestock and greenhouse gases, Dr. Claudio Wagner Riddell in University of Guelph. So really experts in their fields, and then we try to make it easy to get this into layman's terms and out to the public. There's another slide showing some of the topics. We actually sort of, actually, can you flip it forward, Brad? We started this, and in my mind, I was thinking we probably have between 3 and 6. And then we just kept identifying more and more topics that are really big issues. And so we kept going. We've ended up with 15 of these. They're all on our website. You can check them out at your leisure. The one I do want to point out that might be standing out to some of you is, what can the livestock sector learn from the world of pets? And I think, and certainly one of the reasons we're interested in Life Sciences Ontario is that if you think of new drugs, new technologies, quite often it will follow the pattern that it's humans first. It doesn't then go to livestock. It basically follows the money, and where's the money? It's in pets. So we want to find out what's going on in the world of pets, because then we can get a jump on some things and maybe bring them to livestock sooner. And I think we're on to the last slide next, Brian. So it's all about how you view the world. So another quote that I kind of like, we're continually trying to adjust the sails and get ahead of things on behalf of our members. And so thanks for the opportunity, and happy to connect with any of you who have an interest in livestock. Any questions on livestock, I'm sure Brian or Andy can get you in touch with me. So thanks again.
Thanks, Mike. We truly appreciate the support from Elric and Mike and his colleague Gene from the initial outreach. I saw a lot of synergies between what we do for life sciences and what they do for the livestock community. So there's a lot of opportunities there to amplify messages and do some connectivity. So we're very excited, along with the other participants today, to have Mike with us. Now, our final presenter is Carol Stiff, and she's the general manager of Rhythm Pharmaceuticals Canada. Rhythm is a commercial stage biopharmaceutical company committed to transforming the lives of patients and their families living with rare obesity diseases. Carol, do you mind taking us through what Rhythm Canada is doing right now?
Okay, right? Not Mike.
Good morning. So as Andy has said, I'm Carol Stiff. I'm the general manager for Rhythm Pharmaceuticals, and a big thank you to Jason and Andy for the invitation today. I suspect that we're one of the newer members of LSO, and certainly we are one of the newer pharmaceutical companies to Canada, so you probably haven't heard much about us. So I will kick off and just give you a little bit of a background. So we really are in our infancy stages, certainly in Canada, and by pharmaceutical standards, really, we are in our infancy globally as well. We were established in 2008. We are headquartered in Boston, and we are growing rapidly, but still a very small organization at about 180 employees, and that's 180 employees globally. And so our focus, as Andy has mentioned, is rare genetic diseases of obesity. And our mission statement here, as you can read, is that we're dedicated to transforming the lives of patients and their families living with hyperphagia, which we'll talk about in a moment, and severe obesity caused by the rare MC4R or melanocortin-4 receptor pathway diseases by rapidly advancing care and precision medicines that address the root cause of these diseases. So our leadership team, headquartered in Boston, as I'd mentioned, has a strong experience in rare diseases. Some of you may recognize David Meeker, who was formerly of Sanofi Genzyme, who is our president, chair, and CEO. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of a history of Rhythm and sort of how we got to where we are right now, everything kind of kicked off in 2010 when we licensed setmelanotide from Ipsen. And setmelanotide is our singular molecule of focus at this time. And so if we fast forward, I won't go through this entire timeline, but if we fast forward into 2017, we did receive a breakthrough designation for setmelanotide, and the brand name is Imcivree. So you probably hear me use those terms interchangeably. And then fast forwarding again into 2020, we received our first FDA approval for 3 genetic variants that are associated with rare genetic diseases of obesity. So POMC, PCSK1, and LEPR. And then this was shortly followed by the EC approval of the same variants. And then in 2021. Then in 2022, we received FDA and EC approvals for what's called BBS, or Bardet-Biedl syndrome, which is another rare genetic disease that's associated with obesity. And then finally, and I am totally biased here, in 2023, I think the most important development was that we did receive Health Canada approval for those 4 diseases. So the 3 variants that I'd mentioned of POMC, PCSK1, and LEPR, and then BBS. So we were the first affiliate that received approval for all 4 of these indications concurrently. So again, I'm biased, but I think this is a major milestone for the organization. So this brings us to the Canadian specific milestone. So I am thrilled to let you know that Imcivree, or setmelanotide, was Rhythm's first NDS, or new drug submission, to Health Canada. We did receive our NOC, or for those of you who are not in pharma, this is our notice of compliance, or essentially authorization from Health Canada. This was granted to us just about a month ago on May 5th following a priority review. So we are in the thick of our launch right now. And just getting preparations to get products into the country and working on our reimbursement and access activities. And as just echoing what Christina's mentioned, one of the biggest challenges ahead for just about even existing pharmaceutical companies is restricting and tightening of reimbursement and access for patients. I am also very proud to note that we are committed to Canadian patients through Canadian clinical trial sites. So we did have clinical trial sites that were supporting our pivotal trials, as well as our ongoing clinical trial program that we'll talk about in a moment. So in 2022, we established the Canadian office here in Ontario. It's a virtual office because I was an N of one starting in July of last year. Medical director joined me in November, and then we just recently brought on our sales team just about 6 weeks ago. So full contingent of 4 individuals for the Canadian affiliate. And so you may ask, so what is this rare genetic diseases of obesity? So while Rhythm is focused on rare genetic diseases of obesity, we are also very specifically focused on this MC4R melanocortin 4 pathway that I'd mentioned earlier. And I'm just going to overly simplify what this means, and I'm not a scientist. So this MC4R pathway is located in the hypothalamus, and it is responsible for regulating hunger, satiety, energy expenditure, and then as a consequence, body weight. So when this pathway is working appropriately, let's say for individuals like us, you feel hungry around breakfast, lunch, dinner time, you eat a meal, you feel full, you stop eating for the most part. Sometimes we go on and on. And then you stop eating. You also then, in due course, your energy starts to increase because of that food intake. And then ultimately you end up with a healthy body weight management. However, there can be a number of different breakdowns within this pathway that are genetic. So you mentioned, if you recall, I'd mentioned POMC, PCSK1, and LAPR, so you can see these on the diagram here. So anytime there is a breakdown in this pathway, there's essentially a stopping of that signaling. So individuals who have one of these genetic variants or Bardet-Biedl syndrome, as I'd mentioned, and I'll talk about that in just one sec, basically stops that signaling. So these individuals never feel satiation. So despite how much they're eating, how often they're eating, they never feel full. And this results in what's termed as hyperphagia. So it is really defined as an all-consuming, overly preoccupation with food because you never feel full. So this is really something that just encompasses and becomes something that takes over patients' lives. In addition to this, there's a decreased energy expenditure for these patients when there's this interruption in the pathway. So as you can imagine, with those two things combined together, you end up with severe obesity. And typically this is early onset severe obesity. And when I say early onset, infancy and onward. And so what I'll sort of help to sort of characterize, what a patient experiences. So this is an actual patient. So Izzy and her mom. Izzy has Bardet-Biedl syndrome, and so Bardet-Biedl syndrome is a rare genetic disorder. Maybe about 300 to 400 patients in Canada, but we're still trying to figure that piece out too. Interestingly, there is a founder's effect. So for those of you who have worked in rare disease, you're familiar that there's often pockets of communities where there's founder's effects, where the prevalence rate is considerably higher than global populations. So there is a founder's effect for BBS, interestingly, in Newfoundland in Canada, where we anticipate, again, still working through the details on this, where the prevalence rate is somewhere in the range about 10-fold higher than it is globally. So in any case, so Bardet-Biedl syndrome is hyperphagia and severe obesity occurs at a minimum of about 80% of these patients. They do also present with a number of other symptoms. So for example, polydactyly at birth, so extra digits, fingers or toes. There's developmental delays or intellectual delays that can happen with these patients. Renal impairments. And what's also very common in these patients is retinitis pigmentosa. So often these patients, and this doesn't actually present until adolescence. So oftentimes these patients will present at the ophthalmologist because they're starting to lose vision. And so if you're fortunate enough to have an ophthalmologist who's astute enough or has had some experience with diagnosing BBS, this is oftentimes the precipice of diagnosis for these patients. For those of you who have worked in rare disease or are familiar, these patients typically get cycled through specialist after specialist after specialist for years and years and years and never really get a diagnosis. And so So opening back to this hyperphagia and severe obesity, you can see by the quotes here about what the patient experiences, and this really becomes central, especially when it's a child that's at play here. Hyperphagia becomes central to the life of the patient, but also the family. So, for example, everything around their lives is centered around scheduling meals, scheduling snacks. We oftentimes hear from patients that there's difficulty even going to birthday parties because these children that are suffering from this hyperphagia are stealing or bargaining food from other kids. We hear things as extreme as kids getting up every hour in the middle of the night to get food. And refrigerators and cupboards end up getting locked. So you can see that not only does this, not only are the sequelae of having severe obesity, but just the psychological and the anxiety that this causes, not only for the patient, but the family dynamic. And we have heard even anecdotally from some patients that until they've started therapy, they don't know what it felt like to actually feel full. So in fact, they don't really know what hyperphagia is until it's been reduced for them. So enter IMCIVREE. So our molecule of focus for rhythm, this is our singular molecule of focus right now, is setmelanotide IMCIVREE. So we are the first and only treatment that is geared at targeting that impaired pathway, which is a root cause of genetic obesity. And as I'd mentioned earlier, so we are indicated in Canada for weight management in adults, but also in pediatrics 6 years of age and older, with obesity due to Bardet-Biedl syndrome. And incidentally, Bardet-Biedl syndrome is clinically diagnosed, but it can be genetically confirmed. And then our sort of second bullet of indication is genetically confirmed POMC PCSK1. And then just a side note, as an organization, we do offer a genetic testing program that can be confirmatory on a significant panel of genes. All of these genes clearly of interest to us from clinical trial standpoint, but also for diagnosis of patients. And this is something that's offered to patients within a certain criteria, because clearly, we don't have the resources to test every patient out there, but there's criteria within that testing program to help with the diagnosis of these patients. So that's where we are right now. That's what we are in the midst of launching in Canada. We have launched in the US and in the EU. But we also do have a very robust clinical trial and clinical development program. So right now we do have a phase 3 trial initiated for hypothalamic obesity, which is essentially an injury in the hypothalamus that can lead to obesity, and an EMANATE trial, which is looking at a number of other different variants within that same pathway. So we do know that there is typically a significant number of breakdowns that can occur within that MC4R pathway. And so multiple ongoing trials continuing to evaluate setmelanotide. So for example, we have a pediatric trial underway right now looking to expand that age group from 2 to 6. Right now we're 6 and on, looking at a weekly formulation. So right now we are a daily subcutaneous injection. EMANATE, as I'd mentioned on the previous slide, and DAYBREAK are both focused on additional variants. And then looking at hypothalamic obesity. And I am thrilled to let you know that we do have Canadian sites and expanding Canadian sites in this clinical trial. So that's essentially Rhythm in a nutshell. We are super thrilled to be one of the newer pharmaceutical companies that has joined Canada. Incredibly thrilled to be part of this really unique therapeutic area, addressing some unmet needs for Canadian patients. And I thank you for your time, and thank you for the invitation.
Thanks so much, Carol. And fun fact, actually, Carol, in a previous life, before you started Rhythm, you actually brought your company on as a member to LSO. So we are thankful that you brought us to Rhythm. At this point, I'm just going to take a look at Brian. How much time do we have for a few Q&As? None. So what I'm going to do is that at this point, as we often do, we like to go out with a bang. I'm going to invite our president and CEO, Dr. Jason Field, to come to the podium to offer some final thoughts, thanks, and of course, the preview of what we have coming up next.
Thanks, Andy. Do we have any slides? Ryan's so well organized. Well, good morning, everyone. Just a few quick announcements of some upcoming events. For those of you that haven't attended our golf tournament in past, this is a great event. It's an opportunity to get outdoors and meet some and network with some of the your colleagues within the sector, and you don't have to be a golfer to participate. It is best ball, so it's if you want to participate, it's an easy game, and if you're a bad golfer like I am, it's low pressure. But you can also join us for the networking lunch as well if you just want to participate. That new course this year, we're at Lionhead, and that's because we outgrew our previous course. We had waiting lists for the past several years, so we're going to a bigger course this year. As far as the breakfast series goes, we're going to be hitting the pause button for summer so everybody can enjoy their summer vacations. And we're going to resume in September with our annual LSO road trip around the province, where we go to different communities and talk about the life sciences sectors within those regions. I want to take a pause here, and I'm just going to do a little informal poll by show of hands. So one of the things our organizing committee is thinking about is pre-pandemic, everybody liked to come in to Toronto very early in the morning, like we did today, and do these events before starting your daily work. What we're seeing now is more people are working remotely or just coming in on occasion. So we're actually thinking about doing a later start. So by show of hands, do you prefer an 8 o'clock start, or would a later start like 9 o'clock or after show? So let's say 8 o'clock. How about, who likes the early start? By show of hands, who likes the later start? Aha, all right. So that's what we suspected. So I think that's what's going to be happening, is we're going to be doing a little bit of a rebranding come the fall. And finally, I just want to wrap up by thanking all of our sponsors, our platinum sponsors shown here, our gold sponsors, and our silver sponsors. We really couldn't do these events without the support of these corporate sponsors that support all of our activities throughout the year. And of course, today's sponsors are hosts, Marsh. Thank you, Esther and Shelley and all the team at Marsh for hosting us here today. We really appreciate it. And to 10,000 Coffees that we heard from earlier, and also supports our mentorship program at LSO. Thank you again for all your support. Thank you all for attending. Please feel free to stick around, network a little bit, ask speakers some questions, and grab some food to go. Take care. Have a great day. No.